Now you do audiobooks, don't you?
I do. Yep. Yep. I'm actually about to start recording the second book in a series. It's a partner read. So I'm reading with another actor who I've never met, but we have been cast opposite one another in, I think this is like the 5th or 6th book or something. So I feel like maybe we should meet someday, just have coffee and be like, hey, dude. Because we're often like reading these really, sort of intimate scenes, and it's one of the most bizarre things about being an actor is like that sort of like very quick closeness that you have to fall into with people you barely know. It's kind of part of the job. But I'm actually also taking an acting class with one of my college buddies who's an amazing coach and teacher. And one of the things that I think is so interesting about it is just like how you kind of come to a group of actors and instantly you're like nicknames and like just it's this sort of beautiful open-heartedness that I think actors kind of have, which can be rare and hard to find. So anyway, blah blah. Mushy gushy.
It's definitely a talent.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it's, it doesn't always work. Like sometimes it feels hella awkward, but it can also be super cool. So these are just the random thoughts in my head. Charlie's like, whoa, who did you bring on my show, Dave?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, I find all that stuff, I'll be honest with you, I think that is extremely interesting. I had a couple questions for you, actually.
Nice.
My first question was, as far as the prep for something like that, like, do you go into it kind of cold, or like, do you basically read it? Like, do you read this thing like 20 times before you step into a booth?
That's a good question. And I've played with different approaches to kind of try to find what works best. And what I find works best, and I'm working with a great coach now, Shannon Parks, who's an amazing narrator, really prolific, and a beautiful coach and teacher. And her sort of core concept is prepping a book the way you would prep for a role that you're playing, either on TV, in a film, on stage, doesn't matter. She kind of approaches it. She's an actor and a director as well. So her approach is very much an actorly, kind of directorly, sort of, dramaturgical sort of thing. It's like you read the book and it's a first person narration. So you are narrating as the main character, and who is this person? Like, you do a little bit of that backstory work and sort of answer the basic questions the same you would if you were looking at a scene in a movie or a play. And so I find working with Shannon has really sort of invigorated that process for me. And I'm, I'll do a first pass, I'll read the book, like without trying to decide too much, and kind of read it quickly. And then I'll go back over it and sort of, get an idea of the characters in my mind, sort of what they might sound like. And I'll usually read the book like at least twice, if not 3 times, before I even record a line. And then throughout the recording process, you're kind of going back in sometimes and tweaking and being like, oh yeah, in my head that sounded different. Now that it's coming out of my mouth, it's not really what I want to do.
Sometimes what you hear in here is not actually how it
exactly
when it comes out. Yeah, no, I got you. I understand.
And I'm actually finding that, like, throughout this whole crazy pandemic year and like all the Zooms and like this sort of isolation, it's like even tenfold. Like, I feel like that sort of voice in your head, like when you're actually speaking out loud, you're like, oh my God, is that how I sound? Like, it's almost like we haven't even said anything for this whole time, or we've been, like with our own family and just seeing people at my kids' school for pickup. And I'm like, hello, oh, was that too loud? Am I kind of like, what? It's just like, I'm having trouble like modulating and figuring it out. So
I've had that conversation on the way, like, my wife, she works in childcare, and so she just tends to be a little bit more like around parents and stuff like that. So she's like, "Oh, we should go over to Chuck and Donna's or whatever, meet them." I was like, "Okay, that's cool." And then I'm in the car on the way home and said, "Did you think I was loud tonight? Do you think
Exactly.
like no? Like it's okay,
Like, was
but
it
I'll
okay?
sit on it for a week." Yeah. Do they hate me? Do they hate me?
Yeah.
No, I don't
Did
want
you
their phone
think
number
I'm
because
weird?
I'm going to ask them. I guess the other question really quick too, I was going to ask was, you mentioned that you had never actually met your co-star yet, or I
Right.
guess, right? Like officially. Now, in a situation, I only bring this up too, because it's not, I'm sure that's actually fairly common in doing sort of voice work like that. But in the instance of this, like there's a romantic relationship between the two characters. Do you think that if you did meet, that would somehow affect that at all? I know it's voiceover work, but still, like, is that a concern at all? I don't know. I don't know how it works because I'm dumb. So please enlighten me.
Yeah. You're not dumb, Charlie.
You've known me for 5 minutes. What do you know?
Well, from what I've seen so far, let's see how the interview progresses, and maybe I'll change my opinion, but so
Fair
far
enough.
so good.
Oh, you will.
JK. Yeah, I've thought about it, in certain moments, and kind of almost imagined that, like, maybe it's better to not meet in person, because I mean, we do, collaborate in the sense that, we'll touch base on, like, oh, I'm doing this character this way, and this one has like an accent, or we'll kind of collaborate in a more technical way. But it is kind of interesting, for the most part. The book starts, and the characters, you kind of watch a relationship develop, over the course of the book. And so it's kind of interesting, that we've never met, and maybe it's that sort of anticipation, or that, kind of that energy that comes with, like, not having actually moved that to the next level. I don't know, that kind of might fuel it in a way. Like there's a little bit of energy behind that, possibly, because yeah, Zach is kind of like this mystery to me, and in real life, but like I know his voice super well, and like we've worked together a bunch in like our own little bubble. So
Yeah.
I don't know, it's an interesting question, but yeah, maybe we'll just kind of like see how far we can stretch it out, like Ross and Rachel on Friends, like, I don't know, like all of those relationships where you're like, what's going to happen? Like, I don't know. Are they going to get together? Like, we'll just kind of keep teasing it along. Like, we've never met, but, we pretend to fall in love every time we read.
I just think that's really interesting, that it
Yeah.
can be, you can have that kind of chemistry with somebody that you've literally never been in the same room with. I just find the whole thing really interesting. All
Some
right.
people
Are we
just have it.
what Dave, what are you
I
saying
said
now?
some people just have it.
Way to contribute.
Get back inside your hat.
Get back inside your head. Oh, I don't know what that reference is. I'm gonna just steal it anyway.